Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Off-Farm Income Podcast. Thank you for joining us here on our YouTube channel. Well, I will tell you what, just a little over a year ago, I was out visiting a friend. I did a trip starting in Washington, D.C., went all the way up through Boston, spoke at a couple FFA chapters, met with the American Farm Bureau, went to Farm Aid and covered that, did some interviews at Farm Aid in Connecticut, which was really cool, and then went up and saw a buddy who lived outside of Boston in Watertown. And while I was there, we went to a Red Sox game. I mean, you're in Boston, you better go see the Red Sox. So I went to a Red Sox game, and we were walking around looking at Fenway Park, and I'd been to Fenway before, but Fenway had something new that was not there the last time I was there, and that was Fenway Farms, a rooftop garden, and a good-sized rooftop garden they had right there at Fenway Park. Well, lo and behold, that led to an interest. Wanted to talk about this urban farming, and today I get to do that. I'm going to be speaking with Chris Grallert. He is the president of Green City Growers, based there just outside of Boston, and he's going to be talking to us all about this business they have built, farming right in the city, setting people up for urban farming right there in the city, and Fenway Farms, which is very, very cool. We're going to start that for you right now. Chris, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, wonderful to be here, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Hey, you bet. I have been looking forward to the conversation. I really want to learn about what you're doing at Green City Growers, and so I'm ready to jump in. I'd love to start off by just having you just really briefly introduce yourself to our audience so they know who they're listening to.
Sure. Yeah. Great to be here, and I'm excited to talk to you about what we've got going at Green City Growers. So, I grew up in Massachusetts working on a local mixed vegetable farm, sort of a truck farm with a farm market and things like that. And I guess I knew at a young age that I really wanted to be in ag. So I guess I sort of felt like there was always something new to learn, and a lot of changing and action all the time, and I still find that to be true today. So I worked throughout high school and college and studied ag as well in college, and I have degrees in agriculture from the Stockbridge School of Agriculture and the University of Maine. And then I've sort of worked globally, both on the production side and commercial side of fresh vegetable and fruit operations. My background's in ag, and a few years back I was operating a organic apple orchard for a family trust, actually in the high desert in Arizona, and was considering ways to kind of get back home here in New England and be closer to family, and had an idea about building a business based on installing and maintaining and providing services around organic vegetable gardens for residences.
Okay.
And a friend of mine in the financial services industry introduced or coincidentally became associated with my current business partner's uncle, and my current business partner already had this business going in Massachusetts. So we invested, and I became a partner back in 2014.
Okay. And that was Green City Growers, is that right?
That is correct. Yes, that was Green City Growers. Right. Green City Growers is currently, we are operating around, I think we figured out this year, we provide the maintenance to about 140 different organic gardens. And these range from raised bed gardens on the ground, which is most of what our business is, to sort of more intensive rooftop operations. And we have one of our clients is Whole Foods supermarkets, and we have a large rooftop farm there at one of their stores here in Massachusetts. And also we have a more modular system actually at Fenway Park where the Boston Red Sox play, which is these kinds of operations can, of course, get a bunch of attention.
Interesting. So, are you based in Boston, or are you outside of that area?
No, yeah, we're based in Somerville, which is a part of Boston. It's a small city just on that borders Cambridge
Okay.
and Boston. So we're right in our operations are based in the city. Yeah.
Okay. And then what is your title or your position with Green City Growers?
So right, I'm the president of Green City Growers. So I manage all the day-to-day operations. Have spent a lot of time sort of sorting through, costing and pricing and looking at efficiencies and bringing some structure. The organization, of course, is new. I can't go back to the urban agriculture case study and take examples of the right and wrong way to do things. So we're sort of learning as we go. But what we're doing is growing stuff, and that's been happening for, thousands of years.
Yeah.
And, we're incorporating new technology. I'm the president.
Okay. Awesome. Well, and you and I had talked about this, I think, on a previous telephone conversation, but I was at Fenway Park just a little bit over a year ago, September of 2018, and was walking around and happened to see that large garden. And I don't know if I realized that was your doing or that you're playing a role in that. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. And it seems like there's a ton of interest, and interest is growing all the time. We feel like that what we're doing is going to play a role. I think at this stage, a lot of it has to do with it being a sort of an amenity to a property, whether it be for a real estate company, a property management company, or something like that. But we also do production sites, like at Whole Foods and for restaurants, indoor growing systems and things like this. And as people look towards a way of having a more distributed food production model, I think, we're positioned to be a good service provider and a good sort of place to go to find expertise in that. So, my background is in ag, and my director of operations also has 10 years of experience working on sort of local mixed vegetable operations here in the Northeast. And so, we see a ton of interest there. I think all of the different forms of agriculture that exist now, large production agriculture in the desert Southwest and in the Central Valley, where, Florida offshore stuff, where, a good portion of fruits and vegetables are grown, they're going to continue to be, play the role they're in. But there's also, innovation happening with ag tech and vertical farming and the kinds of things we're doing. And so, I think we're going to continue to see new and exciting things happening.
So how does the business work? How does Green City Growers work? Are you, is your company, is it installing or getting these things started, or are you consulting and teaching? I mean, tell me about how it works.
Yeah, great question. All of the above. So what we're doing is installing, maintaining, programming, and providing space activation around these organic edible landscapes, as well as other ecological landscaping systems. So incorporating pollinator gardens and other sort of native plant palettes and bloom charts into these landscapes.
Okay.
We also do pop-ups, and we do a lot of consulting work. So some spaces aren't, or events and presentations and things like that. Some spaces aren't suitable, although you'd be surprised if we can put a garden in, because again, we're not really we need sunlight and soil and water, and we can make things happen in small spaces. And so, all of the above. And, our clients range from preschool age children or preschools with preschool age children all the way up through, sensory gardens at senior living facilities and everything in between, high schools and colleges, property management companies, restaurants, supermarkets. And so we do a lot of public schools as well. And so, we develop curriculum based around organic vegetable gardening for children and grade school children and, adults. And it fits in with sort of, wellness programming, as well as sustainability initiatives, and certainly community engagement, right? It's at corporate campuses where we have, maybe 50 different sites with wellness programming. It's a totally different amenity and different experience. And, I know you've got a bunch of experience in ag, and like I say, I grew up doing it, and I think it's a big part of who I am. And to watch, people come out of a office space or a cubicle and engage in a way that's very different than one you might see on a corporate campus, but two that people encounter in their daily lives. And so, though I might envision, down the line here, exciting new ways that food is being produced on site at restaurants or in greenhouse operations or vertical farming systems or hydroponics or aquaponics or things like that, I just think it's really neat to watch people who haven't had that experience of working on a farm or working in a garden get out there and, watch things come to fruition. Right?
Yeah.
And, so it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that is. And, as I initially looked at this business and thought about having you on, I was thinking about the implications for my listeners around the rest of the United States, even outside of the United States, Canada, England, and places like that. But obviously, you've got a business up and going. I don't know if you can tell me, but how many staff members do you have? If you can tell me that, I'd love to know that.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. We'll do about $1.5 million in gross revenue this year.
Okay.
We have a full-time year-round exempt staff of there's about 10 of us, including my business partner.
Okay.
And some admin and hort support. And so there's so in the summer, that number will go up to about 22. So part-time, seasonal, urban farmers, really is what the major category of that employee is.
Well, and the reason I wanted to bring that up is because you guys have taken a concept and you've turned it into a very viable business here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think part of, again, I touched on it earlier, was, I've been around a little bit. I've seen, what ag looks like around the world. I've got a lot of ideas. I'm never short on ideas. And I think if we can bring together, just some hard work, pragmatism, and just, what we're doing is really exciting, right? We're putting gardens up on roofs and in places where they've never been. But at the end of the day, it's really food production. So what I want to do is not complicate something that already, Mother Nature can throw us curveballs. But if we incorporate, the correct infrastructure, the correct planning into doing these things, I think it's possible to develop a sustainable business out of it. And I think we're there.
Okay. So what is driving the demand for your services and for your products? Is it you guys going out and creating the demand, or has it been created some other way and you found this niche that you can fill?
There is a demand there. People, right? When I first got professionally into the fresh produce business, I guess I graduated college with a degree in sustainable ag from the University of Maine in 1992, and started working on the grower shipper side in the tomato business and other things. And back in those days, the consumer wanted a big red tomato, and they didn't really care or I shouldn't say care. People, I think, in general care, the consumers care, but they certainly weren't paying as much attention to where it came, how it was grown, how the workers were treated, all these sorts of things, right? So there's an interest now. The consumers are paying a lot more attention to that, as you know, and local and organic and sustainable and, environmentally sound and socially conscious enterprises are of interest to the community in general. And so, my business partner and a friend of hers started this business. This is season 11. So started this business 11 years ago, with the idea of installing gardens mostly at residences. And quickly, someone who worked for a large healthcare insurance provider said, geez, it'd be neat to have one of these at the corporate campus. So the demand is out there. I think that, it's finding the right customers that understand that, we're not in the fresh vegetable business, right? We're a service provider, a subscription service provider. So the main value capture concept for this business is recurring services. We're going back on a weekly or biweekly basis to the site to maintain it. And we do everything soup to nuts. So there's not another headache for the property manager and things like that. And I think, in the Northeast now, certainly it's a very competitive real estate market. And, but we started, that being said, we started this business in 2008 in a very tough economic time. Yeah. And there's just such an interest in having, sustainability and wellness and healthy food products be a part of people's lives that I think the bigger obstacle is getting people to understand what that is really, because there's such a disconnect with, I always tell the story of, 150 years ago, 98% of the population was in one way or another really involved in their food production or very close to it with some other ancillary business. And that now is a complete flip-flop, right? Yeah. And that, as some shocking statistics I heard on another podcast, I think was, if you really look at it, it's like less than 1%. And so there's a huge interest. So there's an obstacle of getting people to really understand what it is. Secondly, getting sort of the asset folks, the folks that, that make, deploying, fiscal resources for different projects. It's a very different business than an ag, because in the ag business, the audiences I were talking to in the past were, we were pretty, centered on a specific topic of supply and demand. Sort of here, when you're talking with a real estate company that's got a tenant that's coming or going, or the roof is leaking, or negotiating a contract for some vendor, other kind of, you get lots of things going on. So I think one of the things we're good at Green City Growers is, really delivering to the expectation we set and not creating another potential problem for the property owner. Right. We do everything. And I think that's a big, people will pay for that if they see the quality. And once it's in, the people absolutely love it. And it's just to watch people again, and it's a part of your and my, who we are. But for these folks who haven't had that experience, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that really is. Now, are you replacing existing landscaping and things like that, or are you putting in these raised bed gardens and things like that in areas where there was nothing before?
No, right. So that's a great question. I think that certainly we go where there's lawns, but we also go on patios and pavement and decks and parking garages and you name it. But ideally, I think as these things become more prevalent, certainly on rooftops, and I think, Boston and the Northeast is actually a bit behind in sort of maybe creating some policy to help transform existing landscapes or rooftops into more sustainable environments. Cities like Chicago and Washington, D.C. and New York are ahead of it and are creating policy that supports and sort of subsidizes or, helps incentivize, sustainable building. In Europe, they're, I think, even further ahead in many ways. In France, I'm going to editorialize, but it's something like all new architecture or building construction must have some sort of either solar or green roof infrastructure. So back to your question, we go in lawns a lot, but these are smaller infrastructures, right? An average garden size for us is around 200 square feet or 6 4x8 raised beds, something like that.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, let's do this. I'm going to acknowledge a couple of my sponsors just really quick, and then when we come back, I want to ask you for your advice for somebody who wants to start up this business in Kansas City or Houston or Minneapolis or someplace like that. All right, Chris?
Sure.
All right. Well, everybody, I want to talk about Powder River Livestock Handling Equipment really quick. They have been a great sponsor for years now. They are supporters of agriculture, supporters of this show. And on top of all of that, they make absolutely fantastic livestock handling equipment, from squeeze chutes to sweep tubs to panels and runways and everything in between. They make it for the hardest to handle cattle we have in the United States, and they handle those cows. If they can handle those cattle, they can certainly handle your cows. I shouldn't say those cattle, but they can certainly handle your cows, and we hope you will check them out over at powderriver.com. We've got Powder River panels and the squeeze chutes right here on our own farm for our own cattle, and we think you should as well. Make sure you let your local farm and ranch retailer know you'd like to see Powder River in their yard. And everybody, I also want to acknowledge our newest sponsor, and just so excited to have Lacrosse Footwear as a sponsor. You know, done right since 1897, Lacrosse Footwear has been making quality boots for hunting, working, and tending the land for over a century. We're using them right here on our farm. Hattie, Autumn, and I all are. We're using them up in the mountains when we get to venture out into the Rocky Mountains here in Idaho, and we certainly think you will be just as satisfied with warm, dry, and very, very comfortable feet. Go over to lacrossefootwear.com, check out everything they've got to offer, and let them know that Matt Breckwald from the Off Farm Income Podcast sent you to them. All right. Well, Chris, I am very excited about the things I'm hearing, and you're telling me. I want to ask you about somebody who is hearing this and they're saying, "Man, I would love to get this started up where I live." That could be in a medium-sized city, small city, or a bigger city. Like I mentioned going into the break.
Yeah.
What advice would you have for him getting started?
Boy, so I'm going to just go back with the old adage, and I think it applies to really any sort of initiative you're starting, is try to keep it simple, and try to remain pragmatic, and take advice. Right? If you're going to try to pull together something that you haven't done before, or is new to you or new to the area, tap into different resources, including myself. Feel free to reach out. We love to hear about and there are other folks around the country doing some things very similar to us, if not almost the same, So, and then plan, right? Get your enterprise plan together, get a business plan together, and watch your, just lay everything out. So, so costing and pricing is key. That's one of the things that I work a lot on. So if I don't know, how to do something or what something, I'm really costing out everything down to nuts and bolts. And then once I know those ranges or the percentages of a certain product, let's say, I can add a line that sort of, is a percentage of a cost of goods sold or something. And then the other thing would be, watching your overhead, understanding what that is. So really doing some margin analysis on overhead, and that you've got me thinking. Certainly, the most important thing and the reason we're Green City Growers is where it's at is because of the people, right? I want to treat people honestly. I want to treat people fairly. I want them to be happy and feel like they're contributing and learning. And if I can be a part of that, that's really what my job is. So I may have the title of president, but I'm there really to serve the employees and help them to be effective and feel safe and feel like they're working together, and it's collaborative, right? Two heads is another old adage, but two heads is better than one.
Sure.
And so being open to ideas, executing too, right? I mean, this is basic business things across the board, making decisions that are pragmatic, getting feedback from internally and externally if you can, and then executing, doing what you say you're going to do for your customer, being honest, being humble, that sort of stuff. I aspire, if I can be that way and we can be that way, I think that we can be effective, right? We could put our best foot forward anyway.
Yeah. Let me ask you, I want to drill down a little further on this. So let me ask you, if I dropped you today in Boulder, Colorado, just to pick a city off the top of my head, and said, go start this business, go find your first customer, where would you begin?
So Boulder's actually a pretty good city, so I'd feel comfortable about that demographic. I would probably look for a local property management company or real estate, so that owned the assets too, that managed real estate, but also owned real estate or a certain percentage of that real estate. And I'd go and, and has multiple properties, right? So there's an opportunity to not just do one-offs, but to do do them over and over again with that property owner. I guess I'm talking about assets that are, larger than, a couple 300 tenants inside the building, whether it be residential apartments or offices or something like that.
Okay.
Probably be how I'd start. Yep. So
Okay.
you asked about looking for customers. That's how I just start picking up the phone and knocking on doors and telling the story.
Okay.
Like that.
So we know where you would start in terms of looking for a potential customer. Now, my next question is, once you get somebody to have that conversation with you, what are you going to tell them? How are you going to convince them that there's value in this enough that they're gonna part with their money to have you put this in?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that it's these particular folks that are sustainability minded are already going to have a propensity to be looking to do something like this. They're also going to be wanting to, similar to how I hope our work environment is, they're providing their employees a work environment that is pleasant and fun and has different sorts of amenities to keep people active. And we'll talk about, we'll lay out the costs, and we'll lay out the cost of the maintenance, and we'll assure them of the quality and things like that. So
when it comes to so let me clarify, because you're talking about convincing somebody about the workplace and the activities of the workplace for their employees, but the first people you'd be reaching out to would be property managers. So
right. So yeah, great. I think that that's a great point. So when I'm talking about property management or managers, the companies that own these buildings that have different tenancies in them, and so whether it be sort of a push through with the tenant that has that wants to have it on there, they may just be leasing that property, or whether it be with the property management company looking to provide and retain tenants, right? Provide alternatives and retain tenants. And I think, a lot of the people we're talking to are, they just want to, they feel like they need to be involved in these sorts of initiatives, health and wellness, sustainability, local food, things like that. They know, like I believe, or they believe, like I believe, that it, what it's going to look like 5 years from now, we may not exactly know, but it's going to be really cool. So it's going to continue to progress. They're willing to make a commitment to do that. They also know that our product and service is good, so they can check with others and they can look at our track record. So they, at the end of the day, when, you're looking at a $20,000 to $30,000 installation with another service fee of, say $10,000 a year, it's not that large of a commitment to make in the grand scheme of many of these, buildings, of course, are, tens of millions, if not over $100 million. And so, having these things built into the capital budget and the operating budget are not as significant. And many of them look towards a future where they have much larger on-site food production, vertical farming, and things like that. What we're doing here, Matt, works, right? And I think you know this from what you do and some of the guests you have and what we listen to and read about and watch on YouTube and things like that is, ag tech is great, and there's some fun stuff happening, and vertical farming and things like that are going to be parts of ag in the future. We know that, high-tech greenhouse systems are working well. They're also very, very expensive, right? And it requires a high level of technical expertise, regardless if it's the size of your kitchen or, a 20-acre facility. You still require a technician, and though software is a huge support this day and age with getting stuff done inside these high-tech operations, you still need a technical expert that understands agronomy. You're still working in the supply chain that the conventional growers are dealing in out in the field and things like that. What we're doing is growing in soil, which is predominantly what we do, although we're in talks with doing maintenance for some vertical farming systems and things like that. And it will be a part of what we do, but we know what we do works. We have experts. I mean, we have one of the things when I invested in this company was, where are we going to find people? Because, when I was growing up, and in college and stuff, I was the uncool kid on campus studying ag, But that's changed, right?
Yeah.
It's now a cool thing. And so there's a lot of people that are very interested and also have experience and are knowledgeable and really desire to engage with people. So we're good at that. We know how to keep a garden looking good with 20 different varieties or species in it.
Mm-hmm.
And we know how to engage with people and help them to learn about, self-sufficiency, having their own garden and stuff like that. And so our technology is mostly in soil, and all is, I think, at this point. Maybe we have a facility or two where there's some small hydroponic systems, indoor microgreens and things like that we do. But we know what we do works. We're certainly watching real close at the high-tech stuff, and we will hopefully, be involved in that more and more as it does take its foothold.
Now, when you talk about a maintenance package that goes from season to season or through the year, are your people going out? Are they doing like weeding and pruning and things like that, or is that left up to the employees at the business?
No, correct. So for the most part, again, that's as a putting on my sales hat, that's what we want to be doing is the full maintenance. I'm going to say most sites, if not all, have people that are going to go out into the garden and do some maintenance we're generally at a garden site of, just say, a 200 square foot garden, which is 100 of our sites are that way. Once a week or every other week.
Okay.
And for an hour. And so with children, it's a bit different, right? And that goes into the to the planning of that. There's much more curriculum development and much more activity development and perhaps a larger maintenance piece. When we're working with adults in a wellness program at a corporate campus, they know what they're doing. They're going to be doing weeding. But ultimately, when it's August 10th and it's 110 and 90% humidity, our urban farmer's there. So the garden is still being maintained.
Yeah.
Good, and irrigation's being checked, and so that's a big selling point for customers. They know that it's going to look good. I mean, and generally, we have a conversation with we just want the garden, and I'm going to tell you, 7, 8 out of 10 times, the customers coming back and saying, "Geez, it was fun up front, but people kind of fizzled, and would you come?" And then what we're doing is working with marketing or working with the property management, and we're getting people engaged again.
Okay.
And because we know how to do it, we've got all the back end hort support. We've got all the plants, we've got all the seed and fix it, so then, and we know how to get people engaged now. We've been doing this long enough and got the materials developed out enough that, we can get people into the garden and keep it exciting and keep it looking good and productive. That's a big part.
Okay, very good. Now, let me ask you, if somebody was out there, and I'll use Boulder again as an example, somebody wants to start this business and they're going to get going. Is it possible for somebody to start this business on their own as an owner-operator, one-person operation, and then grow it over time as they develop more customers?
I think, I am the consummate optimist. I love the idea of somebody doing that and bootstrapping it up. And I feel like I've been at places and where I've done similar kinds of things. But what happens is after you get 3 or 4 gardens and you're trying to get plants grown and trying to get seed and trying to fix the irrigation and it's 110 and you raised beds got to get built, and it's without that back end support, it could get cumbersome. But I think that that some people that we get together, maintaining more than a few gardens can be challenging. I think it's one of the things that we have is our back end support. So we have operational support and horticultural support. So when a farmer's comes to Green City Growers, they pick up their kit, right? They're not going through and mixing their crop protection materials or the fertilizers, and it's set up for them by a hort staff internal. The vehicles are ready to go, that sort of thing. Sure, it's possible, and then when you start getting a few of them, be ready that you're going to have to get some support inside another person, that kind of thing. Greenhouse, we have a greenhouse. You got to make plants. It's not like conventional horticulture, right? Where you're going and picking up the horticultural landscaping, where you're going to pick up the plants at the nursery supply company and things like that. It's a lot more management intensive.
Okay. Now, this has been
Be
going
careful of that if you're going to try to do it. Yeah.
okay.
When it starts to get big, don't get discouraged. Keep going. Get someone else that wants to jump in with you, and start to expand it that way. It's hard to do. One person start to feel it after 4 or 7 gardens.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this started back in 2008. So over the last 11 years, almost 12 years now, how has it grown in terms of adding different products or different services to your repertoire?
Interesting. It's a great question. It's very similar, and I think what we've done is just improved our products, right? So initially, when Green City Growers was installing gardens, these were raised beds, kind of corner screwed with large, long, maybe drywall screws or Phillips screws from Home Depot, and kind of just on the ground. Our current product is night and day different. We're trying to use locally sourced materials. We're what's called a benefit corporation, which is a certified company that takes into consideration sustainability, economic sustainability as well as environmental sustainability, and health and wellness and social responsibility for internally and externally. We get certified by that. We're just going through the process now, and I think it's great. It's a deliberate way of going. We want to be a part of how we can, improve, be more, beneficial to society in general and the environment, and we're committed to it internally. So we're trying to source. We use a family-owned sawmill in Vermont for the northern white cedar that's used in most of our raised beds. We use a custom fabricated corner bracket that is of our own design. That goes on. So these beds are not going to. We warranty the product for 3 years, but it's going to be around for many, many years after that. And I think that's another thing is we were, kind of also speaking to, if I were going to jump into this, being really careful about the quality materials. You might be able to find something, and we have the conversation often, or maybe not as often as you think. So, with people saying, geez, I can go online and find this. Yeah, you can find raised beds for less money. They're just, the quality's not there, and I think it's because people don't have experience doing raised beds. It's having a quality product is a key piece as well.
Now, I normally ask our guests what time of year they're busiest. With you, I'll ask you what time of the growing season are you busiest?
Okay. Yeah, well, so spring, right?
Yeah.
So early, getting out, getting started, soil top-offs, irrigation fixes, getting the plants, planting, seeding, cleanup, cold frame removal, all this sort of stuff, training for new farmers that come in, getting all the supplies, everything ready up and go, so it's going to be springtime.
Okay.
Springtime's busy. Springtime's the busiest time of year.
Okay. And now
harvesting, we've got it pretty dialed in during the peak harvest times, right? So July, August seems to be, we have enough support now. That's when people are really excited. So you get a lot of people, people are getting all of their veggies out of the gardens at the corporate campuses and putting together little CSAs and events and cooking events. And so, not on a regular mixed veg operation with limited staffing or resources to pay staffing, bunching up and keep staying on top of weeds and harvesting and replanting, succession into the fall is a little bit different than for us.
Okay. So that begs the question then, what goes on in winter? What is the company? I know you scale back on seasonal employees during the winter, but what are you guys doing during the winter?
Yeah. Boy, I'll tell you. My calendar is still so full right now that I'm wondering when it's not going to be. But I guess in January, so a lot of costs. So what we've done in the fall here is all of our costing, pricing, contract or service agreement stuff for the upcoming year. A lot of planning is going to go on in the winter. We do have 12 or 14 indoor sites as well. that we're maintaining for restaurants and for schools and for things like that.
Okay.
And then just a ton of planning goes on. Reworking the IT system, the CRM, on sales. I mean, I just looked, I'm further behind on reaching out to customers, and I thought it's not going to be the time of year. But in January again, I'm going to be following up and just hitting the pavement and selling and things like, and getting the schedule out. I mean, we're already booked through May, so and we're ahead of things. So we've got some exciting projects coming.
Just another question that popped to mind: if you're in a city like Boston, which has large buildings, what do you do if you've got somebody who wants something like this, but their building front, or they've got a side of the building, they got the north side of the building that doesn't get as much sunshine, or maybe any, if it, if it's in an area with large buildings, what do you do there? Is there anything that you can do?
Well, if we're going to try to find a spot in a building that's going to have sunlight and water. If not, we're probably going to not be able to put a garden in at this point, unless someone wants to make a real big commitment with lighting and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just, there are spots that are not suitable.
Just don't work. Okay. Well, Chris, this has been great. What have I not asked you about Green City Growers that I should have asked you that you want people to know?
Boy, let me see if I can think of anything, Matt. You've asked a lot of good questions, and I think I can get going to cover a lot of ground as well. I mean, anybody can feel free to reach out if they got questions. Check out our website, www.greencitygrowers.com. I guess nothing's coming to mind, Matt, off the top of my head that I might have missed.
Well, then I've done my job.
All right, good. Yes, you have, I think. Yeah.
All right. Well, Chris, the best way to contact you then is through the website, or is there another way you'd like people to reach out?
Yeah, that's fine. You can send an email to info@greencitygrowers.com. My email address is Christopher, CHRISTOPHER, @greencitygrowers.com.
Very good. Well, hey, this has been a thrill. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this today. I really appreciate your time.
You're very welcome, Matt. I really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you for being here, everybody. Thanks to Chris Grallert for coming on and talking all about Green City Growers. Can't wait for my next time back in Boston to check out what they are doing. Sounds like a very, very cool idea. Really, really interesting business. And as always, enjoy your journey to the ultimate lifestyle business, agriculture.